Welcome to the Spirit of a Badass, where we celebrate stories of courage, hope, and resiliency. I am your host, Alecia Jacobson. Hello, my badasses. Welcome to today's episode. I have quite the baddie with me today. I have Emma Schuster. She is a 40-year-old woman navigating through life on her own healing journey. Emma found that the nervous system, renegotiating trauma, and somatics has been the most liberating modalities for her. She wants to share her methods with as many women as possible to support the healing of our world and increase female freedom, joy, love, peace, pleasure, and increased quality of life. This conversation with Emma today is going to be mind-blowing because I'm coming into this not knowing a lot of the things that Emma is talking about. However, I have had an insane curiosity about what somatic healing is. Like I talk about in this episode, I feel like this is kind of the key to my last bits of healing, although healing is a journey and it probably isn't. And she really breaks down what it looks like to kind of heal at the nervous system level and all of the things that maybe you've heard about on the internet and Instagram, or maybe you've even read and heard in books, but you really don't have the awareness of what does it look like to heal your nervous system and how does that translate in showing up in the world when you've healed your nervous system. We learn all about that today, and we have some laughs along the way too. So thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome, Emma. Thank you so much for being here today. Emma and I go way, way, way back. And I don't even know, like mid 2000s, I feel like Emma was in my classes. If you listen to episode 100 with Kelly Sinclair, I talked about some of the inappropriate ways that I supported women in their kind of health journey and the crazy ass shit that I either had them do or the kind of rules that I suggested for them. Emma was part of that. So my formal apology, Emma, for the things I didn't know back then. Kind of like when you have kids and they grow up and you're like, shit, I thought I was doing it right. And then you find out like 15 years later and like, no, I really fucked that up. Emma was part of that journey. And she is so dear to me and I love her. And I am going to be hearing this as I interview her and she shares her story today. I'm going to be hearing this kind of for the first time as you are. And even though I know her, I feel like very well, she went one way and I kind of went the other. So I haven't had this really close personal kind of space with her to hear about this journey that she has been on. And I'm really excited for you to hear it because as we were talking before we hit the record button, it's something that even though I've kind of looked into it and it's something where I tell people, oh, I think this might be helpful for you. Quite frankly, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Even though I say like, I think you should go do this, I'm kind of sending them out into the world going, well, I've heard this is great and I don't know what the fuck it is. So I'm really excited for her to kind of pull back the curtain and not only share her journey, but to share how she supports women in this and how it's kind of like one of those other, I do acupuncture and I send people to my acupuncturist. I cannot explain to you what the hell happens. I don't know what happens. All I know is I feel better afterwards, but it's one of those things where I'm like, I have no idea. I just know it works. And that is sort of, I want to do a little bit of unpacking that today because this is the kind of healing that we all need. And I think there's just sort of this kind of, there's a little mystery to it. And it's one of those things where it's not really tangible. So it's kind of hard to understand. At least that's how I feel about it. So Emma, that's my long-winded way of, hey, Emma.
Hi. And you know what? I feel like living and growing is just like a blanket apology for like things that we may have said in the past because we don't know what we don't know until we know it. So it's like, that's just a part of living and growing and evolving. So no apology needed. And I took exactly what I needed to from your spaces. So
Yes. When I spoke with Kelly in that episode, I was telling her I get these Facebook up like the 7 years ago or 10 years ago on this day. And it's some of the things I said. And I'm like, oh, girl,
yeah,
don't say that. So yeah. Yeah, well, welcome. Thank you for being here. This is a conversation that has been in the making for many, many months, and I have been anticipating it. You have had some life changes. I was actually talking about you with my client this morning. I have one personal training client that I work with, and I was telling her, I'm like, I really think that you would like Emma because she has done all these really badass things, and she's kind of, I feel like you would be her jam. And I was kind of telling her a little bit about you. So I'm excited for everyone to hear about you. So let's back up to maybe a starting point or where the seeds were planted. And then we'll kind of come to what is this kind of modality that you use with people.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. I'm super excited too. I'm also a little nervous, like the human reality of nervousness is true. So both are present here, and I'm super excited to be here. So fun. So a good starting point I think would be, and I don't know if I'll get the year right. It's either January 1st of 2022 or 2023 where I did a breathwork journey for the first time, and I had this deeper body experience than I've had for a long time. And breathwork is basically like a somatic healing modality where you just get to a different, heightened level of breathing, and it just kind of shifts your presence in your body. And so I did that, and I got super curious because I just felt a little different every day showing up in my life. And I was like, wow, this just is starting to shift something for me. It was just like a deeper grounded sense of self, and just like a deeper knowing was kind of showing up for me. So I followed that journey a little bit. I got certified to be a breathwork facilitator. And then I found this new modality which I'm deeply leaning into. Somatic renegotiation is what I like to call it. The story of how I got here, which is maybe the most important thing, because this is what has helped me in my healing, is I've always had a little bit of a struggle with men. And my response in my system is fawn. And that's a nervous system response that we go into in our lives. And I continuously went into that space frequently in romantic partnerships with men. It was something that I deeply wanted to solve because I wanted to find partnership. And so last April, I was still struggling with this, why does this keep happening for me? I feel like I'm broken. I feel like there's something wrong with me. And I found this woman online, and she was a somatic experiencing practitioner, an SEP. She ran a course called the Aligned Love Collective. And it was basically like healing your attachment style in love and learning a different way to call in men, and then learning a different way to show up in your body and navigate the nervous system responses that happen when you're in life going through day-to-day things. And it helped, and it healed me to a point where I can show up differently now in romantic partnership. And I don't constantly feel like I'm trying to earn his love. And it's been so powerful for me.
What is because not everybody might be familiar with the fawn response. I think there's a couple that we're familiar with, the flight, fight, but what is the fawn response?
Yeah, so we have 4 main nervous system responses in our bodies, and fight and flight are the 2 common ones. That's like a sympathetic activation. You can feel like a go-to response where you either want to get the heck out of the room, leave and flee, or you want to fight. And those are 2 very common ones. What then happens beyond that, there's another response called freeze, where literally you can't move. You're incapacitated. Your body's trying to protect you by just playing dead, is the basic response. And then there's a 4th one that's a little bit newer called fawn. And it's basically people pleasing. It's a way of showing up and just adapting, kind of chameleoning to your space so that you can belong, right? It's a basic belonging tactic. And that can happen in a lot of different spaces, especially for women.
Okay. Hey, ladies. I know that you do this. The amount of conversations I have on people pleasing and sometimes, we have these responses for a reason. And sometimes in life we outgrow these reasons, and sometimes we need to expand ourselves and get beyond them. And it sounds like that's exactly, for whatever reason that you adapted in this style. And then, then it's that's something that I'm navigating with my husband right now, is that this is totally different, but also similar. We were kind of functioning in a certain way, and then life has gotten to the point where it's too stressful. and we can no longer function. And like, it's like we were already using like a broken system, and then life piled on more, and we can no longer get through with this broken system. And now we are very painfully, let me tell you, healing. Like, yes, go for it. And also, there's a reason it's called a healing journey.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And healed is not a place to, like, there's no healed. There's no end destination. That isn't a reality. It's a human continue evolving experience.
Yes. Yes. And that is where we are now. It's like, oh, this is not, the awareness has been there of this is not working anymore. And then it's like, okay, what tools can we bring in to do this? So the breath work brought you to, and can you also just kind of define what somatic is? Because I think that's also sort of a term that it's kind of getting to be like a little bit buzzy now, but I don't know that anybody really knows, like, what does it mean?
Yeah, it's super buzzy. Somatic is basically body healing. Soma, the root of the word is body. So it's like a somatic healing, like a body healing modality. So much of our healing is mind, right? Cognitive, mental processing. That's where a lot of people and places like focusing. Talk therapy is a constant. It's a beautiful modality, but it's all like a lot of mental processing. But our bodies have these responses that are learned throughout life, and they continue to repeat them unless we learn a different way or hold space to process and let our bodies kind of renegotiate or move through that trauma response.
How did you heal that? Yeah.
I mean,
it's a big one.
I mean, a lot of crying, a lot of struggle, right? Like I think, like you said, it's a healing journey. It's not always easy, but it's really like meeting all parts of self, right? And we always like these protection mechanisms are so beautiful because they've served a part in our lives, right? Like there was a reason that they were created. And so it's really like learning to hold all aspects of self and like holding those pieces differently. And then working with a somatic experiencing practitioner for me gave me that space where I felt really safe. Like I was able to finally feel safe and like calm in my body, and then work with the activation in a way where like she would bring in like different interventions, and then my body would respond and it would resolve that trauma response. I like to look at trauma. Trauma is something that happens too much, too fast, too soon, and it like gets stuck in our body. It's like you look at like a river or like a stream. It's basically like clean flow, and then trauma like plops this huge boulder in it. And then all of a sudden, like we have to like move through or move around, and it's this stuck spot, stuck response in the system that like doesn't get resolved on its own unless the body has the proper space to renegotiate it and resolve it.
I saw something. I am in no way a trauma expert, or even whatever would be 10 steps below a trauma expert. However, I saw something on good old TikTok that talks about how people, the kind of idea of trauma is sort of this big, which it is. I mean, there is big, impactful, like very traumatic events that happen and change you and cause that big boulder. And then there's also things that can happen that are not necessarily what you would look at as like, for me, it might be nothing, when I along my life path, but for somebody else, it might be something. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit? Because when people hear trauma, they probably have some idea of what that means. And I think there's a continuum of what that looks like.
For sure. Yeah. So we can look at it like big T trauma and little T trauma, right? Like big T trauma is like this huge, maybe dramatic event that's happened in your life. Little T trauma is like just a constant reoccurrence of something happening in life. Like, and a lot of this happens in childhood, right? Like our parents did the best that they can usually. And that doesn't mean that conditioned responses don't happen throughout that experience, right? Like say a parent is like a little bit hypercritical of themselves, and then you feel that from them. And so you feel like you need to continuously like earn love or earn validation. That can be like a little T trauma response in your system where you're adapting. We're adaptable humans, and we're adapting to the environments that we're in. And so in order to create belonging and love, like our core needs as a human, we show up in these ways to create that. And then we have these learned responses that continue to like show up in our lives and don't, like you said, don't always serve us anymore.
Mm-hmm. How have you seen them show up? what does this look like? You gave one example, but what does it look like out in the wild where
Yeah.
people would be like, oh yeah, I feel that.
Yeah. I mean, I think people pleasing is a really good one. Like, I think that's a reality, is like, that's a very common one. I also think that one that I navigate frequently is perfectionism. This like need to do everything perfectly and not allowing ourselves just to be and to show up authentically as ourselves because we have to do it the right way. And I see that so constantly. But, I like to look at kind of two ways to live in life is connection versus protection. And protection is a way that we show up and we inherently build walls because we're afraid of vulnerability, because we don't accept ourselves fully as we are. And therefore, we don't think that we're acceptable fully as we are. So we show up and we kind of build these walls and don't show up with our full hearts and full selves. And that doesn't allow us to create the lives that we deeply desire.
What does that feel like?
I mean, isolating, right? Like it can feel when you're in this protection response, I think you show up and you're just kind of like looking around the world and looking for feedback as to, am I worthy? Right? I think where you walk around and you look into a room and you kind of like look at everyone around and you're gauging, like, how can I show up in this space? How do I need to be this human? And in reality, it can be like, I get to show up and just be connected to who I am and be in that space. I talk a lot about fawn because that's such a go-to response for me. And I think it is for a lot of women, but fight and flight are so common too. Feeling like you're constantly on edge, like an urgency. One of the things that people love to say that they live a busy life, and that can be like a pat on the back for them. And constantly, that's actually like an urgency. That's an urgency thing that shows up in our system, constantly feeling like we need to do something because we don't feel safe just sitting and resting. And so I feel like so many of the go-to condition responses are actually celebrated in life, that can feel really hard to unlearn those things because you're actually doing the things that people aren't celebrating you for.
Mm-hmm. I have one woman that I work with that her goal, and we've been together for many years now, her goal was to stop the sort of busy thing.
Yeah.
And she has done it. And it's interesting because she just realized, so it's been a couple of years, like in her personal life, where she's like, I need to stop this constant need, essentially what you just described, to do more and to like be just go, go, go. And when she would slow down, it would feel so uncomfortable. And often that's what happened when you kind of step out of that role that you've been playing. You feel, because it's like, oh, I'm in a foreign land here. This is not how my body is used to navigating this world. And just recently she noticed it was showing up in a career space in her life. And we had worked on her home space and her personal world. And then now it's like, oh, it's here too. And so it's the one great thing is once you start kind of doing this type of work, or anything, when you see it kind of pop up, it's kind of like whack-a-mole, but kind of once you get them down, they stay down a little bit more. But it's like, oh, I guess I didn't even realize that I also do this in my workspace, or some people bring it out of you, or some environments. Like if you go back, if you have like a hometown or a home or some people that it's like, oh, all of a sudden you're kind of reverting back to what your body knows to be true in this environment. And it doesn't even, you don't know you're doing it. And all of a sudden you might have like left and it's like, what the fuck just happened there? And right. It's like, you're not doing it intentionally with any sort of intention. It is just what your body and your nervous system is like, this is the path I know. This is how we do this.
Right. It's the way that we're used to, right? So we continue that same response that we show up in. I think there's a quote out there that's like, you think you're healed, go spend a week with your family or something like that. And it's like so legit, right? It's like you can love your family so deeply. And yet like those responses are so ingrained in who we are. Like it just shows up naturally. Creating awareness is such a huge component of it. And then it's leading ourselves through it in not always a really, a perfect way. It's messy. Like it's human. There's just so many components to that healing process for sure.
Yeah. This is very loaded. So we'll break this down. What does this process look like?
Yeah. Yeah, there's stages to it. So a lot of people don't even have a relationship to what safety feels like in their bodies and in their system. So it's first about creating that relationship. So it's about creating that like ventral vagal state, which is like the state in your nervous system where you actually feel calm and at ease. And that shows up differently in each body. The nervous system speaks in a whole different language. It doesn't have the words, it has sensations, it has images, it has feelings. So you have to like understand what that feels like in your system and learn how to actually be in it.
So what I heard you say was kind of the awareness of creating safety and figuring out did you say figuring out what safety looks and feels like?
Yeah, in your system.
That feels like a really big step. I mean, I have been healing since like 1985.
Yeah.
Right? Like
same Z's, girl.
I'm not there yet.
Same Z's.
And I get on this I have an amazing coach / therapist that I work with. And every time I'm like, damn girl, like I thought I had made some progress here. And you're just unearthing some things that I'm like, okay, this is why I'm doing these things. I like to think I'm a very kind of confident person. I'm confident in my skin. I'm confident when I walk in a room, as long as there's not too many people in it. And I'm like, girl, get out.
Yeah.
But safety in my body, because I know what you're speaking of, like nervous system safety. I don't think I've even scratched the surface of knowing what that would feel like. I am kind of in that, not in the busy rush. I think I've heard it called functional freeze, where it's like I have been so overloaded and so stressed for so long. Like it has just been one big, and I feel like my life is still like, I've almost created a life that is like, hey, you say you want peace, but you keep bringing things in that will not bring you that, because I feel comfortable there, which I have the awareness a long time ago of. But it's like this tension constantly in my mind and in my body. I have the awareness that I can feel it, but I don't know what that would actually feel like. And that is something that you have achieved. Yes. Have you achieved safety in your body?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's not always there, right? Like that's the reality of it, is like you have a relationship with it. So you know how to access it and you have tools to be there. But yes.
Okay. So for you, and I know that for every person, it's going to feel different.
Yeah.
But for most of us, we do not even have this sort of ability to access what that idea. It's sort of like something is so foreign that to even consider what that would be like until you've had even maybe like a kind of how you said your first breath work, where it was like, oh, I feel change. Like with my acupuncture, I don't have language to describe it. I just know how I feel different. Can you try to give some language for those of us who really don't have an idea of what it might, because there's like, you can feel the kind of energy if you have a kind of an awareness of your body. You can feel that something it almost just feels like out of alignment, or just this almost like maybe sandpaper. I don't know exactly, but it just, there's friction within tension.
Yes.
And what does it feel like to be safe? Like open the curtain a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, safety for me feels like spaciousness, and I can feel like the opening in my body. Like when I go through an experience that I can actually like ground into safety, I feel deeply present in my body. I can feel like where my butt touches my seat. I can feel like different components of my body. And I feel like this openness and spaciousness in my chest, and just like a general ease in my body.
Ease. Okay. And truly, I mean, I think of that and it's like, what would that be like to have that accessible on the daily? Because we all know what stress is like accessible on the daily. We get a big helping of it as soon as our eyes wake up and our feet hit the ground, for the majority of people living in the typical way that most of my listeners would live. And to have, I mean, essentially what you're describing is like this, I don't know, this beautiful place that if you choose to, you can take a little journey.
Yeah. And I think that we are so not typically connected to that space, that like without people holding that space for you, it's really hard to know what that can feel like. And also resolving some of the trauma that keeps you in those stressed spaces, right? Like you said, you continuously choose to build and do the things that create the reality you're comfortable in. Like that's how most people live, because our nervous systems have a conditioned normal way to live. And we continue to choose in that path until we know how safety feels in our body.
So then you have the awareness to choose differently, or what does that, I'm guessing are we still in step one here with the questions I'm asking?
Yes. I mean, safety, okay. Like that reclamation of a safety space, right? That ability to access that ventral vagal, that different way of being, that's the starting point, right? And yeah, you will continue to create what's comfortable, what may feel safe to you, but what may not actually be safe and deeply aligned with what you desire, until you can learn to find what that safety space is. Because you're always constantly chasing and creating what you don't really want, because you don't realize you don't want it, right? You say you want something different, but your body doesn't know differently.
Yeah. And that, I think for a lot of people, at least the women that I work with, it's that the sort of disconnect between my mind. I keep doing these things and I can't figure out why. Right. And a lot of it is that it's these unconscious patterns that we have done, a lot of it lying in the nervous system and the habits that we've created, which then creates your life. And what I heard you say also was, creating that space, which is a lot of, okay, I have to stop. You have to pause for a hot second and think, where do I even start? How can I pause long enough? Because we are so busy.
Yeah.
And that is a part of exactly what you're talking about, is if we stay busy, and then it's almost like you don't even have the time to notice the things that are happening. But really there's this beautiful space that you can create where you feel that safety, and you have to kind of stop and pause long enough so that you have the awareness of, oh, this is a space that I need to make, and I need to make the time for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it can feel wildly uncomfortable for a lot of people, and creating that space. Like one of the things that my mentor told me in the beginning was like, you just have to slow down. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? What am I doing that's not slow? Right? Like how ridiculous, right? Like just to even like intentionally like slow down and just even start the process of like knowing what that can feel like and be in and like seeking support, right? Like that's the biggest thing in this, is like really like being able to seek support and leaning into spaces that feel good to you and feel healing and nourishing.
It's funny. I haven't taken it now. I usually take it in the fall and winter, but I love to do some hot yoga. And I would go to yoga, and my favorite was the Shavasana. Well, everything I take is a suggestion, so I don't usually do a lot of the yoga. I'm like there for a nice little rest.
Yeah.
But I would leave, and it was in a second level, and I would be the first one out. I'd roll up my mat as quickly as I could, throw in my shoes, and like haul ass down these stairs. And it was years before I was like, what are you doing? You come here, you work on your breath, you are grounded, you feel so good. And then the moment you are done, you are like, it's like the gate with the horse races or something. I am off to the races. And I'm like physically making myself go slow and slow down. And this is like, actually like I physically made myself go slow. Was the most uncomfortable thing ever. However, I know that by doing that, I was continuing to harness what I had just created, versus like, oh, now my mind is going, go, and kind of erasing it. Like if it was a chalkboard and just erasing it all.
Yeah. Well, and you gave yourself that space, right? So you did create that space for it. So I think it's easy to be like, well, it didn't even mean anything because I didn't, whatever, I just hurried right back into it. But you did create that space for your nervous system to feel differently, your body to feel differently. So even if that's all you have time for is to slow down and do a hot yoga class, and you literally need to rush out of the door, that's still something, right? Like I feel like we can discredit ourselves but you're still showing up.
Yeah. Oh, and I did not need to rush.
Yeah.
That is the state
Sure.
of my being.
Yeah.
Is like when I am out in the world, it's how can I get back as quickly as possible? I'm like, no, girl, just calm down,
Yeah.
stay here. But yeah, going slow for me and for a lot of people, it feels like, and you had touched on this earlier about the systems that we have created and the conditions that we have a lot of times are praised.
Yeah.
And we are given gold stars. For those of you who love the gold stars and the praise, the pat on the back, these are tricky because we have been taught and modeled that more is better, that faster is better, that all of these things are the ways that adapting in situations, be nice, be this. We have been taught that these are the ways to be. So especially when you have people who you respect and who have nurtured you and, you know, all of these things telling you that this is the way to be. And then you're trying to kind of untangle this inside your body, it can be just like you said, uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of like the systems that have been created perpetuate those realities, right? And so it's just like school systems, that type of thing. It just kind of perpetuates that reality of like, I am good if I do good. And it's really tough. It's tough to see those continue to be perpetuated and created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do a lot of undoing of my children and kind of like, nope, we can fail. It's fine. There's the information there. I remember the first time my son, he was probably, I think he was in kindergarten, and he talked about, you know, it was like failing or didn't do well enough on something. And I'm like the what if he was worried about something. I'm like, it's just information. It means nothing. It means nothing about you. It's just information. So I screwed up a lot back then. That was a good one that I did.
Yes. And right. Like we're all learning and growing as we move through it. So yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything I say has got the edge of sarcasm. Yes. And I know that you know that. Yeah. I'm guessing you still, hopefully you haven't lost the language of Alecia. I would always joke with the people that I was with for so long that they speak Alecia, because a lot of times it's funny that I have a podcast, considering I feel like my language can be inside out and backwards sometimes. And it's like, wait, what did you just say?
That's what makes you relatable, Alecia, right? Like, I think,
hope so.
Oh, totally. Like, and I think I'm still exploring, how does sarcasm live in this realm for me? Like, how do I still continue to have my witty, my sense of self in this space where I'm like navigating these really like important and tough topics? So I think, you know, I'm still exploring what does that look like in my presence? Like, I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's probably an ever-changing thing too. I know when I first started in general, I was very sort of buttoned up. I remember one time my best friend like posted, this was way back on Facebook, like 15 years ago. And she had posted some like inappropriate, they weren't inappropriate, but she was using language that I would never have used on the internet at that time. And I like said, you cannot do that. This is not this is not what I'm trying to put out there.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have come home to myself. Yeah. And it's like, but it's ever evolving, you know, it's ever evolving, just like this.
Yeah. Yeah. We are human, like beings that evolve and adapt.
Okay. So you find your space. What is step 2?
So step 2, which is an important part. I feel like a lot of people, like, regulation's a huge term in the nervous system too, right? Like regulate. And that's that like ability to find safety. When people are talking about regulation, it's that forcing your system to safety. But the second part is super important because we actually start to play with activation. Activation isn't a bad thing. It's a reality of life.
What is activation? Yeah. What is that meaning as it relates to this?
Yeah. So it's like that sympathetic charge. So say you're going into a space like I did today, and I was feeling a little nervous. I felt that build, that like change in my body space where I'm going from not feeling like deeply calm and present to feeling a little bit of like a heightened sense of like nervousness or fear or anxiety or any of those like, you know, activated states is what we would call them. So you start to feel that and you start to play with what that feels like in your system. And the next step is called pendulation. And we move back and forth from safety into activation in these containers that I work in to play with what it feels like to be in activation. What are the windows that we can work within, and how much can we play with it within a certain day and realm? So we play back and forth with this safety, moving to activation, exploring what it feels like in the system, and creating safety within moving back and forth between it, and also flexibility within the nervous system. That's the main goal is this work is like learning how to be with activation and playing with the flexibility within your system.
Okay. Now, if you can break that down and give it to us, and like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
So if I am with you, like, what is happening? And then how does this play out in the world?
Yeah. So what it means is, say, I'll work with a client or we'll work on something, and we'll start usually in like getting to a grounded, safe space. And then we'll bring up something that maybe has been affecting them lately, or some type of experience, right? Usually we go to a therapist or we go to someone for support with something. So they'll come in and they'll share with something that is maybe making them nervous or something. And you can see their body start to shift, right? You can see them physically taking on like that activated state. And then we'll work with that. I'll explore what it looks like. We'll maybe increase it. We'll see what types of sensations are coming up with that activated state. We'll see how long we can stay in it. And then we'll come back to safety, right? So we're playing with it.
How do you come back to safety?
Through knowing what their anchors are. So by learning and working with the client, you can know the types of things that bring them to safety. Maybe it's a relationship with someone. Maybe it's a human in their life that feels deeply safe to them. Maybe it's a physical thing in their room that feels really grounding. A lot of times it's just coming to the present moment, even redirecting to their body and like noticing, do you feel your bottom on your seat? Do you feel your back on the rest? And it's like coming back into this moment and coming back to that safety space.
Okay. So essentially you come in, you piss me off, and then you teach me how to be safe in my body so that I can be in this kind of this space, and then I can create. I mean, I know when I work with people, it's like, okay, it's a lot of visualization where it's like, okay, you're going to go into this space. We know that this is going to be charged. And what can we do in advance to kind of prepare you for this? And this sounds deeper, like much deeper. However, it sounds very similar to where it's like, okay, are you looking to create that space so that when you enter these kind of arenas of charged or anxiousness or stress, that you're able to access that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the main goal, right? So like you think about day-to-day life, you can't control what's outside of you, right? So it's about learning how to handle and navigate what's within you so that you can continue to show up in a way that you want to show up, as opposed to living in that activated state and showing up in a way that you maybe don't have control over. So think about like my example in relationships where I would go into the fawn response and I would live in it. I've now learned how to come back to safety in my body so that if I get into a place where I feel like I'm trying to please to earn love, I know that within my body, I am whole and I'm loved as I am. And I can come back to that space and ground back into it so that I can break that response of like fawning in my relationship.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing, is there also a feeling that comes with that where you start to notice, oh, this is coming back, and this is something that I once felt comfy doing? And do you have the awareness right away now when those kind of things start bubbling up inside you?
I mean, right away, right?
Well, because that's the thing. I mean, sometimes it's like there's certain kind of a space where I work with people where it's like, oh, they don't realize it until maybe weeks later. And we're talking about like maybe like a singular event. And then it's like weeks later.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they start realizing it immediately afterwards. And then it's like, oh shit, I am in whatever the situation is. And then it's sort of like they back up and they have noticed it. Oh, I can feel this kind of feeling in my body and the thoughts I'm thinking before I actually get into it.
Yeah, you can see yourself going into that space, right? Like you can see the outside world happening in a way that maybe would have you being in an activated state, and you can adjust, you can course correct, you can give yourself the tools that you need so that you don't have to even go into that state. Or if you do get into it, like a lot of grace and forgiveness is what's practiced, is like, yeah, that happens, right? Like that this is a human experience and this is how I've lived for 40 years, right? Like I get to learn a different way and I get to have a lot of grace for myself as I do it. So like learning and seeing that in a quicker way, and then, not spending so much time in those coping and self-soothing mechanisms, which is such a reality of how we live in this life and what, like like all the things that we know, right? Scrolling and eating and excessive workout, all the things that we do to make ourselves feel better. Like we don't have to spend as much time in those spaces, and we actually get more freedom and more space in our lives when we learn how to like navigate that response in our system.
Okay. So, damn girl. So then you got time on your hands.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. I was just thinking this morning about how much like trauma reorders our priorities in life, right? Like we feel like we have to like focus so much on the things that we don't really want to focus on because we don't feel like we're good enough in those spaces. So it's like, how can we actually create more space in our lives by noticing when we're in those coping or self-soothing responses, and also like allowing them to happen if we choose to, right? Like there's nothing wrong with those things. It's just about what is our relationship with those things.
Mm-hmm. How do you, and how, I mean, because I know they're the big T trauma and little T trauma. How do you work with people in a safe, because you're creating a safe space, but there has to be a safety allowed for this, because when you're dealing with the different kinds of trauma, how does that, I don't even know if I have the actual language to say what I'm saying. I just know that this would be a very sticky space for someone who is looking to heal, but there's also a lot of kind of reservation, and even the words I'm using do not give gravity to what I'm trying to say. But how do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the reality is like we end up in scenarios that aren't safe, right? Like you think about a relationship that's not safe, or like, right, we end up in abusive situations sometimes because we don't feel safe and we continue to like be in those spaces. And so, yeah, it is a reality of a tough thing to create with someone, but it's about building a rapport, making sure they're in a physical, safe space, and then learning how to connect to that safety so that they can create it for themselves, right? Like there's no perfect way to do that, but it's about building that rapport and building that connection and finding safety emotionally and relationally between them.
Okay. Okay. All right. So are there more steps?
Yeah, I mean, it's an
How
ever
deep are
evolving
we?
continued steps. But so like, I mean, those are the main two like basics of it, is like that safety and then the pendulation. And then it's just continuing to learn how to be in the activation and like learning how to increase our capacity to hold the activation. And so it's this ever evolving continued process. But when I look at this work, those are the three kind of main components, is like access and relationship with safety, pendulation, accessing the activation, and then building our capacity to hold that activation and be with that activation in our body.
What is the purpose of having a bigger space for feeling uncomfortable? How does that translate to a life well lived, or like anything like the good bits, having more space for feeling, because you're uncomfortable when you're like, if it's like, okay, let's increase the space where you can feel activated, you're essentially saying this is a space where you don't necessarily feel, this is not like I'm feeling like jolly and great and all these things, but that is a goal that you have. And then what does that actually look like? Because that is, you feel better, but how does increasing your space for that translate to feeling better?
Yeah. Well, I think that like, we have all these deep desires within us, but we have so much fear that keeps us stuck in certain times. And we live this life that maybe is not something that we deeply desire. It's maybe boring, or maybe it's driven by something that isn't actually aligned with who we are. By learning how to hold that activation and to be with it, we can go up and we can share and we can do things that maybe feel wildly uncomfortable, but they're deeply aligned with what we desire. And so it's that ability to access those spaces and feel safe within them, even if we don't feel like, right, even if it's stretchy. It's the ability to like stretch that reality. So like, I mean, I left a corporate job I was at for 18 years that deeply terrified me, but I was able to access and feel that like sense of activation so I could still do the thing. Right? Like when you think about the things that we just deeply want and desire, sometimes it's on the other side of fear. It's on the other side of all these things that keep us in our spaces. And so it's the ability to actually like go for those things in a way that feels okay and like not extreme in our systems, because we know how to hold it.
Damn, girl. I mean, this is like the bridge, closing that gap of, you have this awareness that I want more, I want different.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is the foundation of it, right? Like there are so many ways to do this, to live a life that you deeply are aligned with and that inspires you, that feels great, and that on your deathbed you can be like, holy hell, I am so proud of what I just did, right? Like there's so many ways to do it, but I do feel like this is a core component of like the nervous system work, this ability to learn how to be with it so that we can actually get really curious about what inspires us and what desires we have so that we can actually make them happen in life without continuously getting stuck on these different paths.
Because they do, you get stuck. I mean, truly, like in my own journey, I believe that what you do is my last.
Mark it down, September 22nd, 2025, claimed.
Yeah. My last step, the last key. And she was wrong.
You say there's never a last step, right? But I do believe that like this core knowing it's a beautiful foundation. It's a beautiful way to like create a life that we deeply love. I do believe this work is like a key or a bridge. I do. That's why when I found it, I was like, I have got to share this with the world. Like, right. Like I thought men were my Achilles heel. I labeled that was my truth for 25 years. I was like, yeah, great with families. Men don't get it. Right. Like I didn't know how to handle this response that showed up within me. And now it's like, oh yeah. Right. Like now I don't have to live in that same story. That belief within me has been removed and a different one has been created because I can find that within me. I can find that truth and I can actually feel it. It's not like I'm standing in a mirror saying an affirmation I don't believe. I'm actually believing it within my being because I've seen that it can happen because I know that it's my truth within me.
And that right there, this is like you said, like the foundation. And I really think, I mean, like I said, I've been healing since 1985 and I've been healing my mind. I have a slight awareness of how, like, I know how things show up in my body. I know these things, but I have not it like almost, I talk about like a weighted blanket. To me, that feels safe. White noise to me feels safe and calming. And that is the key, the access that I do. Like I 100% know that by doing this kind of work, that I would have access to that. It's that we talked about time and making space for it. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And it's beautiful. You found anchors, right? Like those are anchors for you that, you know, help you create that reality. Like those are those things for you. So you found that, you know, that's the first step to it. And it's funny because I feel like our world is telling us to look outside of us for all the knowledge that we need to know about what's actually within us, right? Like, you know, we wear Aura rings to tell us how we slept. Well, you know how you slept, right? Like we wear these watches to give us information about who we are. And it's like, no, girlfriend, like, look inside you. You already know these truths, but like, so I think that this is the reason I love this modality is because I've always been like a naturalistic human. I'm like so in tune with nature and like all of the ways, like natural processes. And this is just another component of it with ourselves and with our beings is like to come back to the knowing of how to support ourselves and how to like live a life that we deeply desire that feels really aligned.
Yeah. And you're 100% right. I do this little mofo right here, my Aura ring on my finger.
Samesies. Like, I love and hate it. Like, are you kidding me? Like there's reasons for it, but also like it just can perpetuate like negative realities in life or that positive of like, I did a really good job. Like it's just like, it can perpetuate that. And it's not always helpful.
Yeah. Can you share with us, I know you've given some small snippets of how this impacted your journey. And then you just said, I worked in a corporate job for 18 years and you made some switches, but you, the Emma that I have known, you are in a completely different world and kind of arena right now than you were when I first met you back in the early 2000s. Tell us kind of if you would give us that journey, because these are the things, what you have done is what so many people are afraid to do. And you have done the work. You're now teaching and sharing the work, but your life is like, it's blossomed. And I was sharing about you earlier and talking about that big ass truck that you drove. And it was always so like, I literally I like had so much love every time because you just like hop out of this big ass truck and it's so unexpected. Like you're expecting this like big burly man to jump out of it. And here it's Emma showing up for exercise class. And just like knowing where you are now, I know that journey had to be a lot of, it's a journey, like we said. So can you kind of share with us how that has worked its way out in your life and what your life kind of was and how you have kind of arrived where you have now?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a unique and quirky human. I think that's just a core of who
That's my
I am.
favorite thing about you. Like,
and I haven't always been afraid of showing that in all the ways, but in certain ways I have, right? I think that I lived, I worked in the financial corporate world for 18 years where when I started, we wore pantyhose, for God's sakes, like a three-piece suit. Like how wild is that? How wild is that? And like, I would get feedback from everyone around me, what I needed to do to fit in. So I constantly was doing that. I was constantly doing the thing that everyone else told me I needed to do to be a part of what I was. And so, I found this modality last April and there was something missing in my life. And I could feel that like my spark had gone away and I was like seeking a deeper like purpose, a deeper connection to what I wanted to do in life. And through this healing and through this work, I found it, right? I found it. And I was able to walk away from a career, like a really cushy job that I'd been at for 18 and a half years and also leave a state I had been in for 40 years, right? Like I up and moved my life to Colorado in the past few months. That's not everybody's path, but that's been my path. And it's taken a lot of like work and healing and learning how to support myself to do it because it hasn't always felt easy, right? Like these aren't easy things. They're big changes, big life switches, and they aren't always comfortable, but it's about like learning how to support ourselves and nourish ourselves and love ourselves through it. And that we can create big changes in our lives when we feel like there's something missing.
One, I love that you said that you had lost your spark and that you kind of went after it. What was it like when, I don't know how this idea of moving to Colorado flourished inside of you, but how did you use these tools? Because that could be scary as fuck. And how did you use them? Because I know that like the idea or the thought or the somebody talked to you or whatever it is pops in. And then it's like you have things that you have to work through in order to make it happen. So how did that show up inside of you and how did you work through that?
I mean, I think I've always had a deep calling to live somewhere different. Like I love Wisconsin. It will always feel like a home to me. And that doesn't mean that I won't end up back there at some point, but I know that I was ready for a different thing. And the reality of the reason that I chose a different place is really kind of funny. I had been dating in Wisconsin for so long that in January I went out on 2 dates with men that I had already been out with 5 years ago. Oh gosh, and I didn't realize it until after the date, Alecia. So I was dating the same dating pool of men after 5 years. And I was like, I have got to get the F out of this state. Like, get me out of here. Get me out of here. So my brother lives in Colorado and I've always had a beautiful like feeling in my body in Colorado. There's places that you go where you're just like, I feel good here. I feel good here. And that's how Colorado has always felt for me. It's always felt good in my being. So I switched my dating app in March to Colorado, to Boulder, because my brother's girlfriend said that's where all the hot men are.
I was going to say, is this like ChatGPT? Like, where in the U.S. are the most emotionally available, intelligent men?
So I changed it to Boulder, Colorado, because that's apparently where all the hot men were. I met this guy within 2 or 3 days and we started dating long distance. And we started building this emotional connection and foundation that at the end I was leaving my job June 30th. And so like we built this, we visited each other and it was just like it was a different way of dating. And it felt different in my body to like date from a place of knowing my worth and my value and I'm lovable no matter what. And being able to like build from that space. And so
hot damn, fuck yeah, you did.
I moved in with him. I moved in with him 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love you.
I mean, it's also wild.
I mean,
like,
yeah,
it's such a wild story.
Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. But that's what can happen, right? Like when we heal and hold ourselves differently in like life, and we can actually achieve different results. by like, I moved in with a guy a few years ago and it was a terrifying experience. It was absolutely terrifying because it didn't like, number one, the relationship was not meant to last. Like we were not a good fit.
This is the last time we talked, I think, was when this was happening.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I didn't have the awareness to be able to realize that. And also it was just like a terrifying experience to move into his place. And my new guy, Bryce, like we just like naturally clicked. It felt really good. We have the emotional connection. We have like honest and like conscious conversations. And like, it felt normal and easy to move in here. And it feels normal and easy to live here. And it's just like, never a year ago would I have imagined that that could be a possibility for me. But I was able to claim it by like doing the deep healing work.
Fuck yeah. Go claim your shit, ladies. Like, go claim it. Like, do what you have to do to heal your shit, because this showed up for you in relationship. Truly, the women that I see out there and, on my screen and that I talk to, the fucking relationship that they have with themselves.
The core.
Yeah. Like,
that's the core. Yeah. And that's what this shifted most for me. Right? Like I show up with like, I have my back at all moments. Like I have healed.
And not in an icky way, because some of us feel like sometimes I'm just like, I'll fucking do it myself. Like I have this like that is my fallback.
Yeah.
And I consciously know I remember one point in the last several months where I'm just like, well, I know I'm healed. Like I literally just got off with my therapist and I'm like, I know I have the tools to do this. However, I do not have the emotional capacity to handle this right now. So I'm just going to bring up my little wall here. Actually, I think I envisioned it coming down like the steel doors where it's like, like slam shut.
Yeah.
And I was like, because this is what I need to get through the world. Yeah. However, when I say like, I truly believe that this is the last air quotes thing for me, because I would have access to other tools that I don't currently like. I've scratched the surface on what you work with people and what you have taught and learned and things like that. And I truly think now that you have defined what it means to kind of hold that, to increase your capacity, when I did that, and I truly 100% awareness of I have to do this right now so I can keep functioning in the world.
Yeah.
To be able to use the tools I have of healing and keep that open in a vulnerable, that would have been very vulnerable for me, space to do that. I know that I would have been better off in that like healed, lovely space of life instead of doing what I knew was like, oh, I know that I can fall back on this bitch back here because she's gotten me this far.
Yeah.
And she has other tools, the tools that I don't want to use anymore, the tools that I've gone out and like foraged other things because I need them and I know they're good for me and will get me where I want to get. And I just really think I really appreciate you talking about what it looks like to kind of build that capacity of being in that space of the kind of the activation, because a lot of us, it kind of just reminds me of like the shock where it's like you get that electric shock and you run back. So it's like, oh, I don't want to feel that. That felt bad. And if you can, but you also won't continue to feel like that electric shock. It's not like you're going to build this. It's because the response that your body gets will be so much different.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You're learning what that response is like and what it means, and that it actually cognitively doesn't mean the same thing that you thought maybe it was. So we do pair that cognitive processing because there's a lot of stories that still exist that need to be like brought into how does that connect with our body? So that's still a big piece of it, but yeah. Component, and that self relationship, that is a core of healing, is like, how do we treat ourselves, because that is such a reflection of how we treat others, whether we believe it or not.
Emma, thank you so much. Is there anything that you would want to share that maybe we didn't get to, or that you think it is important for people to know?
Yeah, I mean, the core of it really is, it's about being with yourself, and it's about coming back to the natural ways. And it's about knowing that you are worthy of it, right? Like knowing that you are worthy of the life that you deeply desire and that it can be yours to claim. It's super important to know that that's possible.
I think that the claiming of it and that it can be, and that it's possible is just, that's huge. and then bringing that in and believing it, because I think a lot of people, women especially, they don't actually believe that. That's one of them things where it's like, you can repeat it, but you have to actually feel it and believe it. And by using these tools, you can feel it and believe it.
And you don't have to force it, right? Like, I think so much of it, I mean, I was a forcer for many years of my life. I forced myself into scenarios, but it actually gets to feel easy and it gets to feel different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much, Emma. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad. I know that I feel like this is so interesting. I feel even though I knew it already was accessible to me, I feel like it's so much more accessible now that I have a better understanding of what it is. So thank you for kind of breaking it down and sharing your story and how it could impact other people, because I mean, fucking women will be unstoppable. I mean, we are unstoppable.
We are unstoppable.
Not in a crazy forcing way, because you guys we gotta be chill too.
Right.
However, when you feel so good in your own skin, that is just a beautiful place to be.
Yep. Yeah. I like to think of it like a resilient nervous system, or like an embodied nervous system creates an embodied and resilient world. Right. And we really need that. And so starting with ourselves so we can lead by example and hold other people through it is so powerful and important.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you. It's been such a joy.
Yes.
I've been excited to connect with you for so long. So thank you.
Me too. How can people get in touch with you? And I'll link everything in the show notes, but if you can just kind of share how they can connect with you and get in touch and maybe read more about what you do.
Yeah. I am mainly on the platform of Instagram currently. So I'm Emma Schuster. That's the current location for Instagram. I'm currently building my website, so that takes a little bit of time.
Yes, it does.
and then my email is, which you can tag as groundedinlove143@gmail.com. So still building out all the different ways to work with me, but there are plenty of spaces, and I'm so excited to continue to share about this work and hold space for people.
Excellent. Yeah. It's a journey. All of those things. I feel like I'm always like, and then when you get one, that is a journey too.
Yes, it is.
All right, Emma, thank you so much.
Such a joy.
Spirit of a Badass is a Lit Path Studios podcast and is produced by Jamie Gale and Alecia Jacobson. Music by Shane Ivers. We'll be back with another inspiring interview. Until then, keep your spirits high and your energy badass.